on this day. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Wiseman,
Present.
Commissioner Sahakian, Commissioner Yakubian. Here. Commissioner Mangasarian,
Here.
Chairperson Fuad.
Here. Can we have the flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. Can we have the posting of the agenda, please?
Yes. The agenda for the Monday, December 17th, 2012 special meeting of the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission was posted by December 14th, 2012 before 5:30 p.m. on the bulletin board outside of City Hall.
Next is oral communications. I don't have any cards for those. Since we last met, we've had some city staff changes, and maybe Steve Zern would like to introduce our new traffic person and maybe our new assistant city attorney for the time being.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. First and foremost, let me wish you all and all of your families a very healthy and happy holiday season. It's been a while since we've met, and a lot of things have happened, as Mr. Fuad indicated. We went through a lot of changes this past budget year with some retirements, some restructuring and reorganization of not only the Public Works Department, but several of our departments in the city. But within Public Works, we have essentially combined or collapsed down several of our operations into other existing divisions. One of those was Traffic and Transportation, which was collapsed down into the Engineering Division. And we had retirements, as you know, of most of our top-level managers within the Traffic and Transportation section. So I've placed all of the traffic engineering functions and the parking functions under Mr. Galanian. I think most of you know Rubik. He is the Deputy Director of Public Works / City Engineer. A lot of us these days are slashing and doing more than one thing. And Rubik will have that responsibility. Transportation will still stay under me as the Director of Public Works for the time being. A lot of this restructuring is an ongoing effort, so that may change in the future. And if that does, I'll come back and talk to you a little bit about that. But for now, that will remain reporting directly to me, while the traffic engineering and the parking function be under Rubik's responsibility. So he will be your liaison and the one who's handling our efforts. Tad and Jeff, who've done an admirable job running our parking operation, will continue. Rubik will also have the planning function. So Fred and all of his successful grant writing will continue under Rubik's supervision. Wayne Coe, some of you know most of the staff, and they'll be there. We've got a great group of people. We lost some terrific managers, there's no question about it. You know, it's been trying times. In the retirement incentive package, we knew we would lose good people, but I think you are in more than capable hands with Mr. Galani. He is an outstanding administrator and will do a great job with traffic, and he's done a great job with engineering. So I have nothing but the highest level of confidence in his ability. Mr. Aldesco, talk about last man standing. Again, well, Public Works had two attorneys assigned to us, Chris Sansoni, who you were familiar with, and Mr. Aldesco. Chris also retired, and we don't have plans to replace that position. So the burden now falls to Mr. Aldesco. Again, he will do a fine job. No question, he's been doing it for a while. He's been working under Chris and doing a lot of the traffic work and some of the legwork that on issues we've been looking at. And so now he'll just be here with you and working directly and taking care of those issues related to the operation. But again, very capable hands. I'm very confident and comfortable with the situation we have. We're smaller than we were. We're leaner and more conservative, but this is our future, and I think these folks are just outstanding. So with that, I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Galanian, as I do have another meeting I'm juggling here to get to, but it's a pleasure as always to see you and to be up in front of you. And again, I wish you nothing but the best holiday season, safe, happy, and successful New Year for all of us. So,
thank you very much.
Bid you adieu.
Thank you. Why don't we go to the first action item?
Item 4A, report regarding proposed preferential parking for the 1400 block of East California Avenue between Sinclair Avenue and the end of East California Avenue.
Mr. Galani?
Chairperson Fuad, members of the Commission, before I get into the report, Steve left, but I wanted to thank him for his vote of confidence, and I just wanted to say that it's a great honor to be working in this capacity, working closely with all of you, and I look forward to a productive and fruitful tenure. The item before you is a report on a proposed preferential parking for the 1400 block of East California Avenue between Sinclair Avenue and the end of East California Avenue. And Mr. Tad Dombrowski, our parking manager, will present you with a brief report on that.
Thanks, Rubik. Good evening, Commissioners, Chairperson Fuad. The report on tonight, it's just one item. It's the report on 1400 block of East California. This area is right next to Glendale Adventist Medical Center and is a residential street. It has on the board you can see it's residential on the north side, and on the south side it borders up against the 134 freeway. We received a petition back in August it started, but we got a completed petition in October with 79% in agreement to have to request permit parking only 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, due to the hospital hours primarily. They're there all the time, and it seems as though we have several visitors and employees and people who are going to anywhere other than the residences there that are parking on that street because it's so convenient and located so close. There's approximately 25 unrestricted curbside spaces that are on that street now. There's no time limit other than the 72 hours that's throughout the city. And there are 14 total residences on that street. 11 of them had signed the petition and said yes. Most of them have small and narrow driveways and can park one vehicle, if that. And Mondays and Tuesdays are especially impacted due to street sweeping. The Glendale Adventist Medical Center parking has approximately 1,200 spaces for visitors and an employee parking lot with a couple hundred more spaces. They do have additional capacity on site. They do charge for parking. And as a result, there are people who are looking to get out of the fee for parking and instead park in the neighborhood surrounding the hospital. So residents on that street have all seen, in general, and especially the petitioner, has seen this. It's a common occurrence, whether it's visitors or a few employees that are parking on that street. They're there for sometimes a few hours, sometimes all day, sometimes at night. We did get one letter and an email from the same person who was not in support of this after the letters of notification of the meeting came out. It was originally, when the petition was submitted, it was a vacant unit. The resident moved in after the petition had already been gathered and submitted to the city in October. And she called to say, no, I don't see the parking problem when I'm coming and going. It doesn't impact me, so I really don't see a need for this. We also got one phone call in support as well for the petition. So there were 3 residences who either were vacant or said no initially out of the 14, and this was one of the vacant units of somebody who subsequently moved in after the petition was already gathered and submitted. We do have several residents here, as well as a representative from the hospital, in case there are any questions.
Fine. Well, do we have any questions before we go to the public comment? Why don't we start? The first card I have is Edward Grashaw. Forgive me. Grashaw.
Good evening.
Please state your name.
My name is Edward Cranshaw. And how do we do this? Do I just state what I see? I mean, how do I address you, in other words? Chairman?
Just commissioners. Commissioners is
My
fine.
issue here is that I've been living in this area since 1979. Okay? Basically, that's my mom's house. I moved back recently in the last 3 years. And there's a definite change and shift. And my primary concern is not only that they are employees, but there's some people that they just park there for whatever reason. And I'm a night person, so I'm the one that does the walk at night, and I see more activity than just there's sex and there's drugs going on in that street in the evening. Okay, I've also seen that from high school students. Now, my other concern is, are these people watching who's coming in, who's going out, putting at risk and endangering the neighborhood? For I don't know if there's any reports of burglaries, but I can see that becoming an issue. Whereas before, I mean, it was a very safe neighborhood. And in terms of the hospital, I am very understanding that people who have ill people at the hospital may not be able to pay the parking fee. Nonetheless, I have a mother that has Alzheimer's, and her life is at risk should something happen there. There are also children and another elderly couple that lives around the corner, and that is my primary concern. There are also cars that just they just park for lunch or something, trucks and stuff, and that's my concern. I get paranoid. And again, I see it at night. I'm a night person. I work nights, so I go for a walk around the whole entire, and I call the police all the time if I see something that is not happening. So it's over. Thank you so much. and
Thank
happy
you.
help. Thank you.
Sir, question. I've seen, I could tell you what happens between 10 and 3, 4 in the morning, okay? And what I see at night, it's primarily from 11 to 3 in the morning where I go for walks. I mean, not the 3 hours. There are, people that should be going to a motel. Okay.
Yeah?
Okay. That's
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Emmett Van Ness. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Emmett Van Ness. I am the owner of 3 houses situated on the 1400 block of East California. My wife petitioned for this preferred parking on behalf of our tenants and their concerns of the lack of parking in front of their homes. Some of the petition's complaints are the hospital employees as well as hospital visitors are on California instead of hospital lots. On street sweeping days, this leaves very little to no parking left for the residents. These are older homes and very short driveways, so they are forced to either park sideways or on their driveways, so they park a couple of blocks away to avoid tickets. My wife has been a hospital employee for more than 30 years and has always paid to park in the parking structure. The fees are small and they are ample parking spaces available. There is also free parking, employee parking at the side and behind the hospital. It is common for people, non-residents, to park and encroach in the tenants' driveways, making it difficult to pull in or out of the driveway, specifically for the 1477 address because the driveway is angled to the street. There is a lot of loitering by teenagers and other individuals who park on this street since it is a dead end. People eating and dumping their trash in the street and the sidewalk. Teenagers smoking pot. My wife has witnessed couples having outside and in their car and having sex outside and in their car in broad daylight. The neighbor reported several times a man sitting in his car for long periods of time, and when the residents came out to investigate, the man drives away. There is a salvage car dealer who uses this street to store his truck and beat up cars for days, if not weeks at a time, sometimes growing cobwebs under the truck. This is an eyesore for the tenants as well as being intrusive when it parks his big truck or damaged cars right in front of the tenant's front door with no concern to the persons living there. closing. I hope that you will approve this petition for the preferred parking for the residents and return it back to the nice street it once was to live on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for Mr. Van Ness before you go. Regarding the street sweeping, it was mentioned before that it says, I think, that there's street sweeping on Tuesday in our packet, and I think there was a mention also on Monday.
That's right.
Are there different days for different sides of the street?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Like the street where my houses are, it'd be Monday. Okay.
And the one next to the freeway is on Tuesday?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So they all switch from one side and the other. And so if somehow after they go Tuesday, they get right back over on our side so they can take the whole week up there. That's a real problem you should be able to park in front of your house. And we don't have, like I said, big driveways or anything for them to park in. When I first in 1970, my father and I built those houses. And I wanted more bedrooms. The city of Glendale wanted more parking spaces. We gave them the parking spaces, but now we can't park in front of the house. So.
One of the other things I noticed when I drove the street to look around is there's a no dumping sign at the end. You have issues with dumping and littering on there?
I'm so glad you brought that up. I wasn't going to bring that up, but I don't even live there. I'm the landlord. I live away, okay? But I don't know if it's a lack of concern. I know that Glendale is very proud of its neighborhood. It has picture days, and they take pictures, and they show out everything's beautiful. Sometimes of the year, I like them to come down our street. I'm always sweeping that. There's a problem. There's a problem with Caltrans and the city of Glendale. The city of Glendale says, oh, that's Caltrans' job to clean that sidewalk over on the other side because it's on a freeway. Yet there's fire hydrants and all kinds of stuff, red zones that the city puts in there, and they all say. And in fact, I shouldn't be telling all this, but one thing that really, I come down there once in a while, I sweep that whole thing down, just myself, because it's a lack of pride for my tenants in the neighborhood. And I'm the only one, and I pick it up and I throw it in my trash cans. And at the end of that street, what you're talking about, the city, I think they hire out people to come to clean up and bag things. Well, they come up and bag it, and it's been like 6 months. It's still down at the end of whoever they do it, they let it sit on the sidewalk, and they have all these social services trucks run around, but they don't see that, and the neighbors don't even call them to tell them they'll pick it up. I don't live there, but it's frustrating. I mean, I'm trying to get it to look nicer around the way it used to be.
Okay,
so
thank
glad you mentioned that. I'm sorry I spelled off on it on all this other stuff, but I do have pride in that neighborhood, and I'm trying to get it to be better. That's all.
Okay,
Thank you.
Right.
Mr. Galani, do you have any comments on the bags being left there? I guess after the city groups them up. You can sit down.
Chairperson Huat, members of the commission, if it's Caltrans right away, then they have jurisdiction over it to maintain it. And
But with the city, but I think he's talking about the cul-de-sac on the city street.
that's probably the courthouse who brings the people to bag them. But we will definitely look into it. If it's the city, we'll do a more frequent cleaning.
Well, but even if it's the courthouse, would they be then responsible for cleaning it up? I
Yes,
guess?
yes. If not, we will look into it and we'll pick
Okay,
it up.
well, even if it's them, maybe you can have a chat.
Absolutely.
Because there are bags lying on the sidewalk as we speak.
Understood.
Thanks.
Thank you. Melissa David is our final speaker.
Hello. I am Melissa David. I live at 1471, which is a house kind of in the middle. And as far as I'm in complete agreement with everything that they said, there's a lot of issues with the parking from the hospital. I have a certain number of people, and I know their cars. They park right in front of my house, right after street cleaning. And if I hadn't moved my car right actually at 2 o'clock today, I'm sure that she would still be there. And some of them actually I've talked to personally and said, you know, I live here. I'd really like to just park in front of my house when I get home. And there's no consideration. A lot of these people work there or live almost in the surrounding areas, and they will just leave their cars. And that big truck also that was mentioned stayed there, I want to say, for a couple weeks. He transferred for the street cleaning days, and then I was actually on vacation. I came back and I caught him exactly when he was parking, and I went up to him and I was like, please don't leave your truck here. I've heard it's been here for a couple weeks. So, and they say yes, and they'll move it if you're standing right there, and then just completely disregard it. So, especially on street cleaning days, it's very, very congested. I'll drive down and say, what's going on in my neighborhood that I can't even park in my own house? So, it's really frustrating. So I'm just really glad. I hope that this all goes through, because then I can park when I get home and not worry about parking down and around the corner and having to walk back. And I know there's a lot of unsavoriness going on as well, and I live by myself, so for that I just I'll see something going on and I'll call and say they've been here for a while, and I'm not going to personally go out because I don't feel comfortable. So I would greatly appreciate these signs going up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
As was mentioned, I have one email or two emails from the same person whose name isn't here. Do you have his name? Or?
Yes, I believe we do. Yeah, it was from the resident at 1461.
Okay. Well, the email basically says he doesn't see a problem. He doesn't see why he has to pay for a permit to park in front of his house. I guess one thing that maybe we take all comments. You mentioned the staff report mentions Sinclair Avenue. What are your thoughts on if there's a spillover? Then what are your thoughts there?
If there's a spillover, we do have. If it happens within the next year, based on this, we would just ask for the same process. They'd get a petition together, and then we would automatically extend it over to Sinclair in front of the residential homes that are on that street. The north side of it has the hospital itself and the parking garage, so it wouldn't be for that section of it, but for the rest of Sinclair, it would administratively be done instead of having to come back to you.
Is that something you'll monitor and initiate, or would you wait for the residents to do that?
We would typically wait for the residents to petition it.
Comments from Mr. Kupian?
Well, it's tough when you're, the parking situation, when you have to deal with competing with other neighbors, residents on the street for a parking spot, let alone a business that's right next door. I'm sympathetic to it. I'm also very sympathetic to this blight that's occurring in this area. And I'm a big proponent of, making Glendale beautiful and keeping the streets clean and tidy. So I'm leaning in favor of this per recommendation of the staff that we do this. It just seems that all of the criteria has been met, and it just seems like the worst of situations. Seems like the Pandora's box has been opened up on this particular cul-de-sac for you, and you're facing all sorts of issues with this parking. So I'm leaning in favor of that.
Thank you.
My question is for staff. Do you think by establishing this professional parking, the problem is going to go away? Your professional opinion on this? I just want it for the record. Because I want the residents to be confident that if we do this, next year they're not going to come back, or the adjacent neighborhood is not going to come back here and ask for professional parking, and then another neighborhood.
And typically that's exactly what we see, Commissioner Magnassarian, is we see it move. It alleviates the problem on this street, and the people who are parking here now look for the closest available parking, which in this case would be Sinclair. The residents from Sinclair call us within the next couple months and say, we're now having a bigger parking problem than we were before, and that's when they go through the petition process themselves. So as streets, this in theory would probably spread, and as streets get more and more impacted, more and more parking comes up, to a point where the close streets near the hospital are essentially established with preferential parking, and then it becomes a choice by the visitors and the employees of, do I walk 2 or 3 blocks, or do I just pay the parking fee at the hospital? And at that point, usually there's enough people where it kind of splits the difference, and some of them park there and some of them park on street, but it doesn't impact the streets the way that currently California is, and the way that I would guess that Sinclair would eventually be.
Thank you.
Okay, my turn. Well, I live on a cul-de-sac street, and I'm aware of some of the problems that exist, especially some of the things you mentioned regarding the teenagers and some of that type of activity. There are 22 houses on my street. This is a much shorter street, even with 14 residents. Because of the fact that there are a fairly small number of houses, and there was at least one person who was opposed to this, I maybe started off being not too sure that a 24/7 restriction was going to be appropriate. But with given the information that the person who objects is not really a long-term resident, but has only been there since October, and the people that have come to speak tonight are longer-term residents, I'm now more inclined to agree that the 24/7 restriction is appropriate. Also, because there are only 25 spaces, if there is some movement of the problem to adjacent streets like Sinclair, because we're only dealing with 25 spaces here, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a huge problem, and hopefully, at least in terms of hospital staff and patients, it will be an incentive for them to take advantage of the parking that is provided by the hospital. And so I am inclined to support this as well.
Finally, I think for all the reasons that have been mentioned, I think I'm inclined to support it as well. It's a small, defined area. Being a road next to a freeway, it's sort of the notion that it doesn't belong to anybody, I think, sort of is there. So I think this will give it the residents some ownership feel to it. And if we get rid of the bags on the cul-de-sac one way or the other, I think that'll help as well. So I think we're ready for a roll call.
Well, someone has to make a motion first. So.
Do I hear a motion?
I will move that the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission resolve to limit the parking of vehicles on the 1400 block of East California Street between Sinclair and the end of East California Avenue in accordance with Section 10.36.030 of the Glendale Municipal Code, with a restriction, no parking except by permit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And I'll second that.
We have a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
Commissioner Sahakian, Commissioner Yakubian,
Yes.
Commissioner Mangasarian,
Yes.
Chairperson Fuad.
Yes. I think that exhausts our voluminous agenda for tonight. Do you have any staff have any comments or thoughts? Well, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have some.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go on. I'm sorry. Go on.
No, we're not
I would like to make a recommendation that the city staff bring out a report in January of the goals and objectives that you're establishing for the 2013. I would like to see my main, and I give you hints, my main concerns are safety, transit, and financial situation of the city. So I like to see something in writing about what are the projects that the department is going to look into in the 2013. What are we looking forward for that? I mean, are we pedestrian safety? Rubik, you're familiar with that. Safe route to school applications, highway safety improvement applications. What the city has done anything on the call for projects, metro call for projects. We'd like to hear about those. The transit, the effect of the rise in the rate, the fare. What kind of an effect on the ridership has been established there? Those are the things that I like to see. So if we can, kind of a synopsis of what we're going to look into 2013.
Chairperson Fuad, Commissioner Mangasarian, just to be clear, so you're looking for our goal, the department's goals and objectives as far as safety-related projects pertaining to pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicular traffic?
I didn't say bicycle, but that's a good idea. Yes, why not?
Might as well cover everything. And impact on the ridership after we increase the fare?
Right.
I wasn't clear on the financial situation.
Grant applications that
Grant
you have worked on
Got
the
it. Yes.
Safe Route to Schools, highway safety grants, call for project grants, and any
Absolutely.
other federal and state grants that the city is working on to improve safety major.
Sure.
Do you have anything? I wanted to mention, Mr. Galani, you mentioned before the meeting that you're going to present us the South Brand parking, I guess, final plan in January.
Chairperson Fuad, yes, Mr. Dombrowski and Brown are working on the staff report. We have almost completed it, actually, but we wanted to do a more extensive outreach with the community before we bring it in front of you.
Very good. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much. Have a happy holidays, everyone.